In this month's episode, we have Miriam Tutham and Michelle Heaton that will be talking to us about finding and hiring independent caregivers. They've done a lot of workshops in this, and they'll be giving us a lot of really useful information and provide us forms and materials so that you can be inspired to find your own caregivers and be more equipped with real tools to do that. They're going to explain you the entire process from beginning to end and discuss the possible challenges, as well as, if we have time, talk to us about payroll and what it takes to make it all legal and in compliance with the new labor laws.
What I'm doing, I have this business or practice, you can call it, it's called care management. So I wanted to live and serve this county, so I became a professional care manager outside of being a nurse. So my passion is really to help people to set up care at home, that people can stay in their own home as long as possible. And so my experience, how I came into the really helping caregivers, like with caregivers, how I became passionate about it. The reason I decided to get engaged with caregivers because I saw a real problem with home care agencies, huge problem across the board. No matter who I spoke to, they say, Miriam, this is just not working. We're paying home care agency $35 an hour. Caregiver is only getting paid $14 an hour, and we have a revolving door. Because when caregivers are only getting paid $14 an hour, the moment they get paid, offered to pay more, they're gonna leave. So you have caregivers who do not stay. It means you do not have continuity of care, and that is extremely important. Then a caregiver will not be able to develop bond with you. So with independent caregivers, it's a whole different world. You have a potential to develop really a bond with this caregiver, that caregiver will become like a family member to you, which is amazing. You really develop personal relationship with your caregiver. That's what independent caregivers can become. I'm really here, I just want you really to understand, I'm not here to sell my business to you. My passion is really to inspire you to do it on your own. And I'm a great believer of actually teaching people how to fish instead of giving them fish. I want to. Yeah.
I don't like the books.
So what I'm saying is that I want to really give you tools today that you can be empowered to do it yourself. And if you get stuck, this is when you're going to call me or email me. Miriam, we've tried to do this, but it doesn't work. And you're welcome to. I will be happy to get emails from you if you want to stay in touch with me. I will leave my information and I can guide you in this process, or Michelle, one of us, when you will have questions, we can help you. And if you say, you know what, we know how to do it, but we still want you to do it, and that's fine. So I'm going to talk about the process, how to pre-screen caregivers, how to interview them, and how to do everything legally, how to make it work well for you and your caregiver. So again, what really, really has inspired me to go into helping people, this is all started from my dad. Back in 1998, my father was diagnosed with ALS. So my family was in a really, really difficult financial place. They lived in Boston. So we knew right away that we cannot have home care agency because they were very challenged financially. So this is when I started doing this. I started interviewing people, and I interviewed people back in '98 in Boston, and I was looking particularly for caregivers who spoke Russian. That was not easy because there were so many caregivers and so many who actually spoke Russian. And because for my dad, he was not in a great place, he understood English, but he still felt better. It was cultural connection. It was just not just the language. For him, it was extremely comforting that somebody would actually be from his country with the same background. And I was blessed to find somebody. We found this incredible woman who came into our life, and she stayed with my family until my father passed away for 3 years. And you would not believe it, until today, I'm still calling her every December to wish her Happy New Year. I told her, as long as I'm alive, I will be grateful for all she did for my dad. Because, you know, her presence was the only time when he was actually able to laugh, when she was there. Because the rest of us was so burned out. I was trying to keep the whole team together, but it was not easy. My brother was burned out, my mom was burned out. everybody, and I had also small children at that time. I had 6 and 7-year-old, and we all lived in the same house. We moved from California to stay with them. Me and my husband and kids lived in one room for a few years to be able to help my family. So this woman came into our life, and it was a real blessing because she was taking we were able to refocus on, I was able to refocus on my family when she was helping my dad. And every time she would walk into the room, after 10 minutes, I would hear my father laughing. And it would give me so much joy. And he already could not talk. With ALS, you lose your speech and you have no speech. And she was able to get him in such a sweet place that he was able to be receptive to her great jokes. And we always heard him laughing every day. So it was such a joy. So from that point on, I realized, wow, independent caregiver, that was the right thing I did. So then 14 years later, 2014, my sweet mom is diagnosed with brain cancer. I'm dealing with this all over again. And I already knew what I'm doing, independent caregivers. So I found an incredible woman also who spoke Russian. And I did this one more time, and it was amazing. I was still there, but we needed more help. I just couldn't do it on my own and my brother. It was impossible. We really needed additional help. So she stepped into our life, and it was an incredible journey. It was very short, only 3 months, but we all did what we could. And she had a special person who was there for her in the end of life. That was really meaningful to me. So then we came back to California, and I did the public health nursing, and then I went into this business. And that's where, because I went here really, because I'm inspired to help people like you, because I believe there is nothing like being at home. And I want everybody to have the quality of life like my mom had. So going back into the independent caregivers, there are two websites that you can use. One is called care.com. I don't know if any of you heard of it already. Care.com, and the other one, carelinks.com. You will be able to go online and actually see which caregivers are available in Santa Cruz County. So I want to tell you honestly, when I started this about 8 years ago, I did not have a network of caregivers. So I started from situations from care.com. And what's really important, what I want to tell you, even if it's care.com and you trust them, still don't trust them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you want to trust the site, but you want to check the caregivers. Because I already had 2 very, I would say, sketchy caregivers, which happened to come from care.com. But because I have very thorough screening process, everything went well. I knew that something was not right, and I'm not working with them. So first, I would advise you go on one of these sites if you want to do it yourself, and just see the backgrounds of these people. You will see their picture, see which person will feel right to you. And I always encourage clients to look at 3 candidates, always, not just one. And the more the better. You can have even 4 candidates, and talk to them. You can start talking to them on the phone first. First you will email back to them, I'm interested to see if you would like to work with me. This is who I am. And then you will introduce yourself through the email, and then you will exchange your phone numbers. Then you will be able to talk to them. Listen to their voice. Listen how they sound on the phone. Because I talked to some people, I would say, wow, something is really off there. Maybe they are on drugs, maybe you pick up a lot of stuff as you speak to people on the phone before you actually meet with them. And see how they are answering questions to you. What are they telling you? Are they, hiding something? Get to feel their personality. Are they open-minded? So if the phone interview goes well, you can go to the next step. Then go to the next step and then set up interviews. I would encourage you strongly, never set up an interview at home, because they're still strangers. You understand? When even care.com already did some pre-screening, they are still total strangers to you. So I never meet with people in my office or my home. And I tell my clients, never do this. You would want to meet them in Starbucks, places like Pete's Coffee, meet them in a coffee shop. The first interaction should be in the coffee shop, a place which is not private to you. I feel like it's just safer thing to do. And then you will get to meet them and see how you connect. So connection, the emotional connection is huge. You will see if you connect to them as a human being. If you do not connect to them as a human being, it's just you probably will not hire them as a caregiver. And even if somebody will tell you they have 20 years of experience, if you don't have personal connection, I would not go there. So very important to try to connect. And what I usually do in my business, I always meet with my client first, and Michelle is learning to do this really well. And we get to see our client, the personality of the client, and we actually try to matchmake. I sometimes joke that I feel like we are in a matchmaking of a husband and wife, because in a way we are also looking for the match. Match is very important here. So we are looking at your personality and the personality of a caregiver. And sometimes if you really feel strongly about a caregiver, you feel like this is a match, and then you start having her, and then something comes up that you didn't realize, didn't think of. Then just be honest with her. I mean, being honest is the best, you know. I didn't realize that this and this is gonna be stumbling block for our relationship. It probably would be better if I have someone else. I'm sorry about it, thank you for your time. Always be sincere, because they are humans like us. So it's very important for me to treat caregivers with respect. So one of the things that I'm also doing in this county, I became a huge advocate for caregivers, because caregivers are badly underpaid. And the reason I'm saying this, I'm asking all my clients to pay them fairly, because if you pay them fairly, they will stay. What happens if you pay them really low? They will leave. I said that early. So the comfort zone, for 8 years, I looked and I studied what's the best, where client is happy and the caregiver happy. And I found this happy zone where everybody's feeling comfortable. It's between $20 to $25 an hour. That's where caregiver feels appreciated, between 20 to 25. So under 20, they don't feel enough appreciated. So where we are with our rates now, so with $20 an hour, usually it's gonna be a companion level of a caregiver who doesn't need to help you yet, maybe with the personal care aspect. So if you want more personal care, helping you to do toileting, bathing, dressing, any of that, probably gonna be more like 22, 23, and then you will tell them that you will give them a raise eventually. And they love to hear this, that they will get a raise. You can say, we're gonna give you a raise a year from now, $1 more. And they know that you're thinking of them, they will super appreciate that. Okay, let's see, I just don't wanna cover, there's just so much to say.
Oh, I just wanted to add that you can also, if you decide to hire someone, you can do it on a trial basis. That's another thing we sometimes suggest, is just maybe trying
Yes,
a
thank
week,
you.
and just leaving it open for everyone to
Thank you, Michelle.
discover if it's a good fit.
Absolutely. So you can always be honest with your caregiver in the beginning. You'll say, how about we try it out? And so try it out for 2 weeks or 1 week. And in 1 week, you will talk to the caregiver, see how it's going for the caregiver and how it's going for you. And see if it's still a match. That's absolutely, you can do that. So a lot of my clients, and I want to be honest with you, more than half of our clients, they want to pay caregiver under the table. So you probably heard this term, under the table. So it means nobody's paying taxes to the government. So I need to respect my client's choice. If you ask me personally how I would prefer doing, I would like it to be all legal. It's better when everybody is legal, when it's all set up legally. And in order for you to set it up legally, not to get your caregiver in trouble, not to get yourself in trouble, you can do payroll yourself, or you can hire a payroll agency. So where is a home pay agency that I recommend? They're a wonderful agency. They're connected with care.com. It's called Home Pay, and they're national payroll agency. And they're wonderful. They've been helping at least 5 of my clients in the last 4 years. And my clients are really happy. They're doing all the payroll, so they say they're taking out all the taxes from the paycheck, and they already sending the paycheck to the caregiver. So a client can stay away. I mean, whereas some things you will still need to do. You will need to enter the hours your caregiver does. So where some work you still need to do, but a lot of things payroll agency will do for you. of course for a fee, but they're not super expensive. So, but that is your choice. So I would encourage you, if you wanna set it up legally, I would hire a payroll agency. So then a lot of people, what the people are really concerned, and one of the things that home care agencies always make themselves, they say this, we are bonded and licensed. You hear that, right? A lot? Bonded and licensed. So I have really looked at each chart, what it means. And you know, what it means and how to make it set up with independent caregivers that you can be covered. So bonded, anybody can be bonded. So what they're saying is if a caregiver steals something from the house, we have a bonding insurance and your money will be reimbursed. But then, so letting you know what I have learned, even they have a bonding insurance, if they cannot prove that caregiver stole something, they will never get anything. So this bonding insurance, it only sounds good. In reality, they don't get anything out of it. It just only sounds good to consumer because that's how they're advertising themselves. So what you could do in order for you to feel protected, it's extremely important to have your own insurance, which will protect you. So for those of you who have homes, you have your own homeowners insurance. So I don't know how many of you know that under homeowners insurance, you actually have also workman's comp insurance for your caregivers. How many of you knew this? I'm just curious.
Well, I didn't know that. Does that include the gardener?
You need to call your homeowner's insurance. I was very surprised when I called our AAA. In 5 minutes I found out that we have homeowners insurance which covers caregivers who can stay in my house 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, even live in. I was like, wow, this is like, you made my day. You made like my life. This is amazing. Seriously. We have it already. Most of us already have it. And if you don't, I helped one of my clients just 2 months ago. We called her farmer's insurance and it was not part of it. And we added for incredibly little amount of money. So you can add this part to your insurance. So I would encourage you, it doesn't matter if you rent or if you own, it doesn't matter. Everybody has homeowners insurance. If you are renting, it's important for you to speak to the management of the building where you are because they have homeowners insurance for their company and you can use that. And that will be a huge thing to protect you. So God forbid, your caregiver, something happens to your caregiver, that's where the homeowner's insurance will kick in. You understand?
If renter's insurance will cover any of that?
Yes, so the same.
Same thing.
Rental insurance, I also researched this, it has homeowner's insurance policy. So you need to ask them though. It's very, very important. Don't assume that you have it. Very, very important to ask. Yes, so the very, very important thing is also, Michelle is gonna talk about a part how to do criminal background check. That is extremely important. So I'm gonna let her do it.
So the easiest thing, there's, as you all know, there's fingerprint checks, there's internet checks, there's county searches. The kind of gold standard would be fingerprinting always. And if a caregiver has worked for an agency, they've been fingerprinted. So the very first thing I try to do is just tap into that. So the very first thing I do is ask somebody if you've ever been fingerprinted in the state of California, and if they say yes, I say great, with their social security number, or I've just learned, I've always been using the social security number, but also their driver's license will work. You can call the Department of Social Services, there's a background check, and sometimes there's a long hold time, but they will, with their social security number, they'll give you their clearance or not. And they're usually associated with the facility where they've been fingerprinted. The other option is you can ask them to be fingerprinted and registered, and some caregivers do that themselves, and they're registered with the Department of Social Services. They have a number they can give you, and you can look it up online with that number, or you can just ask them to print out the sheet that they're registered. They pay $35 every 2 years to keep that registration with their fingerprints. If somebody has not been fingerprinted, you have a couple options. You can either do an internet search, which I have found is not very thorough. So people will come clear on the internet search, and when I do the county search, they will have a criminal record. So what I've learned is it's critical to always do the county search. So now on our form, which we have a form that you're welcome to, it asks the last few counties the caregiver has lived in, and I just go into the public portal for that county. There's a smart search, and I've left you some, it's on the form, and it's just really easy. All you need is the name. You just do the name, say you're not a robot, and it will come up. You do need to know their birth date, because sometimes people have the same names. So you need their birth date, and if there is any criminal record. So through experience, I've learned that the county searches are actually really critical, because sometimes the state will tell you they're not clear, but they won't tell you if there's any, they won't tell you anything beyond that. So if you get that information, it's super important to follow up with a county check. Because that's what I learned in a few. It was like, well, they're not clear. Well, I said, well, have there been any problems? That's all they can say. So, that's how I learned to dig a little deeper and start doing county checks.
I have one little trick, and it's not about that.
Yeah.
But I do background checks because I rent out spaces in my home.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to figure this out, and I do the binverified.com and all that. But I just ask people, when I do the background check, what's that going to show? You know, nothing, except that little thing with the knife and they just spilled beans.
Oh, that's a really good.
Thank you for sharing. I just want to go back for a minute for references check. So I would encourage you at least do free reference check, really, really important. So I would call people that they worked for, at least 3 people. It cannot be their friends. It has to be somebody their client. And you really want to make sure you get them and ask a lot of questions. Were they reliable? Are they honest? Are they hardworking? Are they sitting on the phone half of the time? So I don't work with caregivers who are sitting on the phones for half of the time. I want a caregiver to be present for my client. So really be there for a client. They're getting paid, they have to be there for a client. And so.
May I just say one thing on that?
Yes.
Is that a lot of times caregivers will list the agencies they've worked for. And the agencies, I'm finding now, are not able to give references. So what they'll say is you'll have to get the caregiver to fax their permission, and all I can tell you is if they worked here. So really you need people they can call. You can have agencies for their experience or to verify their employment, but not for a reference.
The good news is, we just had this conversation with Michelle just before we came in. When you know that if a caregiver actually worked for a home care agency, you know 2 things. They first of all, they will be able to say they work for them or not. They know that they have been fingerprinted by the agency. So you don't need to worry so much, because they were already fingerprinted. As long as it's fresh, which you don't want like 10 years ago. You want closer, maybe within a year, within a 2 year. And you also know when a home care agency is saying, yes, this person has worked for us, you know that this person has experience. You know that they are a caregiver, which already has some experience, and they already helped few people. So these 2 things you learn by knowing that they work for a home care agency. It's actually a very positive thing. I love when they work for a home care agency. So many caregivers, we have 55 pre-screened caregivers now, and half of them work for me, for us, and half of them work for home care agencies. Because it's not like I have 50 clients, so they are not all completely busy working, helping my clients. Because many of them still have to have multiple jobs. And since their pay is so low, many of them having 3, 4, 5 jobs. That's what happens with caregivers. In order to survive for them in this county, they have to have multiple jobs, and so it's very challenging. I think this is important. So through this process, during the last 4 years, I have developed these forms with a very close friend and a professional. Her name is Annalise, and she's this incredible person, and she has been a caregiver, hospice caregiver, for 30 years of her life. And then she wrote a book. Just recently, she published a book, and when before her book got published, We have met each other right before the book got published. And when she had learned what I'm doing, we both saw that we have the same passions, helping people. And we decided, when I told her about my work, and we both decided to make it easier for people like you. So we both designed a lot of forms and tools to make this process a lot easier for you guys. So these forms are actually in her book. She talks about her experience as a caregiver and how she helped many people in the last 30 years to be okay with passing. Her passion in life is helping people how to pass comfortably. And so I'm gonna just briefly talk about forms. So the very first form that when I start the interview process, I use this form. Here you just pretty much, they will put their basic information, their name, their phone number. Also, where is a question? Have you been fingerprinted in California? Question is here. So this important question is here. Do you smoke or use recreational drugs? So it has some really important questions. You will be able to learn a lot from this form. So after your initial interview with the caregiver, this form will really show you a lot. You can sit down and review all your forms and see what's going on here. And so this form is number 1 that you will use. And then, okay, so then we're 2 more very important forms that we are really excited that we produced them. One of them is a self-assessment for caregivers. So I always tell this very funny story. It happened about 3 years ago. A client, somebody from Parkinson's group hired me, and they said, Miriam, can you please find a caregiver? Sure, no problem. I'll help you. I'm sending this wonderful woman from Brazil who was, she told me she was experienced caregiver. So I'm sending her over there, and then the client calls me 2 days later. Your caregiver ran away. I said, what do you mean your caregiver ran away? She said, the moment I told her that my husband needs an enema, she got spooked. And she apparently never did an enema, and literally was thinking, I talked to her later, she thought it was this huge big mess which is gonna be all over the house. She exaggerated this whole enema in her head, and she got really scared, and she ran away. So, so that was, for me, it was a huge learning. I said, wow, I cannot send people to people's home that I don't know what they are capable of doing, what they are not. So this is how this form came alive. So now this form, you will know what your caregiver is capable and able to do or not. You are not gonna have a cat in a bag. You know what I'm saying? And that is really important. So I'm extremely excited about this form because it made my process and your process will be much easier. So the other thing is what we are doing to help caregivers. We have developed form, me and Annalise developed this amazing form too. I'm just so excited about these forms. I can't help to contain my excitement. It's called Assessment Checklist to Determine Needs of Care Receiver. So it means the caregiver will know what your needs are. So if you have MS, you're gonna be putting down things which are affecting you in your life and all your challenges. So the caregiver will see challenges you're facing. And so before caregiver will take a job, you wanna make sure they read this and they see if they're willing and able to help somebody with your issues. Does it make sense? I also have another 2 great questions that you could use. So a lot of my clients says, Miriam, when we meet with the caregiver, bless you, when we meet with the caregiver, we don't know what to ask them. They said, can you please help us? I said, no problem. In 1 hour, we came up with questions, what to ask your caregiver, what to ask potential caregiver. So that is also gonna be in your toolbox. So I'm pretty much giving you tools that you could do this on your own. And what Michelle came up with, this was Michelle's idea, and I love it. It's called Caregiver Checklist. So before you're gonna hire your caregiver, go through the checklist and make sure you did everything. And that is really important too.
I would just like to add to that, before I meet with caregivers, I bring up, what to bring, a copy of your license, references, past jobs, so that they're prepared when they come to the appointment. It's so much easier to get everything when you first meet with somebody. It's hard to chase, information.
Thank you, Michelle. That's important. Yeah, we always ask them to come prepared. And if those people who have resumes, I said, please bring your resume with you. To me, when a caregiver has a resume, it indicates they're professional. It's very important. Okay. So in California, your caregivers do not need to be certified nursing assistants or home health aides. They can be anybody from the street. So pretty much anybody who has any experience as a caregiver, they can call themselves a caregiver. And it is important. So I want to tell you personally, I love when a caregiver is also certified nursing assistant or home health aide. It means they're going to be much more professional. I know those people who went through those trainings, they're going to know about body mechanics. They will know about the back safety. They will know how to check vital signs. When you're dealing with caregivers who are not certified, you will need to train them a lot more yourself. You just need to be ready for them because you don't know the level of experience this caregiver will bring. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for your attention, and please ask me questions afterwards.
Does anyone know if there's funding for caregivers?
There's what? Funding? Does anybody know about funding for caregivers?
I don't have direct experience with this, but I think that if you have Medi-Cal, then you do get covered for a certain number of hours of in-home support services.
You do, and though it's not 20 to 22 hours, $22 an hour. They go by, they're paid by the state, and so yeah, in-home support.
Oh yes, and I actually thank you so much for bringing it up. I worked for in-home supportive services. When I worked for Adult Protective Services, because it was social services agency, the other part of the agency was in home supportive services. So I know this program in and out myself because I served people for 10 years. So if any of you are low income or close to low income, I can tell you or give you advice what to do to get on that process.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I'm a recipient right now, but
Yes,
it's just all of this stuff
Yes.
is
And
relevant.
you could use a lot of this knowledge for those type of caregivers too.
Yeah.
Because that you have to screen even more.
And it's literally off the street. It's not.
Yeah, so
I mean, it could be
So
anybody.
you need to be extremely careful, especially with IHSS caregiver, because you're dealing with a lot of desperate people who are willing to take any job, and you don't know who you're dealing with. So please, 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 please screen them. Do your homework. Very important. Really important. Yeah.
The question. So I'm just at the point where I can see that I'm gonna need a caregiver, but I don't really need a caregiver that much per week, that many hours. So I'm wondering like what the expectations are for like how many hours per week or hours per day you could hire somebody, or even if there are caregivers who are willing to work on call, just be available when I need them, but not on a regular schedule.
So to answer this question, I tell you honestly, on-call caregiver is very, very tough to find because, as I said, they all trying to make living. They all have children, many of them. They're just trying to support themselves. It's hard to have caregiver on call. I'm actually trying to develop a system now that if any of the caregivers, I'm serving right now 12 clients around the county, and I'm actually trying myself to develop a system that I have 2 caregivers which will always be able to cover for sick caregivers.
And it's usually a minimum of 4 hours.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes a caregiver will agree to 3, but it's, you know,
Is it
it's
per
a little
shift or
hard
per
for
hour?
somebody to do less than a 4-hour shift.
Per week, shift to shift.
Just
Yeah,
per
no,
shift.
Yeah, so
Just per shift.
thank you for standing. Are you still recording? Yeah, so it is minimum of 4 hours. So usually caregivers, they don't wanna come if it's less than 4 hours. It's much harder because they're making a trip, they're driving to you. So they just don't take jobs if it's less than 4. They all like a lot of hours and they know that, but some people only can afford so much. So they're also willing to do just 4 hours and it's fine. I mean, all of the caregivers, at least we work with, they're willing to do 4 hours and above. And also whenever you will get to the point of having 24 hours set up, because I have a lot of clients need 24-hour care around the clock. So I do teams of caregivers. So I have you, because of the overtime issue, none of the caregivers should work over 40 hours because I'm very mindful. I don't want my client to be paying overtime to the caregivers. So that's why it's important to have multiple caregivers to cover many hours and nobody is out of compliance with the California rules and stuff, you understand? Any more questions?
What if you put them on salary? It's just you pay them like a certain amount.
Monthly?
Yeah, whether they worked 40 hours or less.
Oh, that's an interesting question. You know, nobody asked me this before. I'm actually gonna look into it. This is really good question. The
Right,
question
then you
is,
could
if,
include vacation time.
By the
and stuff
hour,
like that.
probably.
this is interesting. So the question here is a great question. If you can put them on a salary versus paying them hourly. And you know, you can talk, see the thing is, because they are independent caregivers, you can talk to them and negotiate. I encourage you, absolutely negotiate, just try to be as fair as you can. All I'm encouraging you, be as fair as you can, and I understand you have your financial limitations, so just be within your financial ability. Try to be as fair as you can, but I think I think there is nothing wrong with that. I never heard that it's not a good thing. I guess you can, I just
Right.
haven't had the experience with this.
That way, sometimes you need more, sometimes you
Yeah.
need less.
Right.
Might
Have kind of a
even
steady salary. That's interesting,
out. And their income stays the same in the amount you pay out.
right?
Well, then they're also exempt, which means you don't have to go by all of the labor, it's different labor laws if they're on salary, so that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
That's
We
an
should look
interesting
into it.
take, yeah.
I'm gonna look into it and get back to you.
I'm
Because if I
curious, like, what your fee structure is normally, or, you know, how do you?
Sure, I will share my fee structure, and it is reasonable comparing to other care managers. It may sound extremely high to you, and I'm still trying to be competitive to other care managers. Other care managers in Bay Area, I have to be honest with you, charging $120 and up. 120, 130, 140, 160, all the way to 170, something like that. Whereas almost like, and I felt this is way too off, so that's why I wanted to be reasonable, but then I felt pressure from care managers. I needed to bring it up. So right now I'm at 110. At the same time, I feel strongly, if somebody really needs my services, I will offer you sliding scale. Because I just can't, for me, it's not my nature. I just can't refuse people my services. Yes.
Do you wear that shawl to cover your wings? You angel.
Oh, you are so sweet. I'm not an angel.
No, not.
I'm not.
You are.
I'm not. Believe me, I'm not an angel. Trust me. I'm
do-
learning. I'm
You do a
learning.
really beautiful service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me. I love you guys. You're an
Thank you.
amazing group of people, really. And I'm so honored meeting you. And I will probably be in touch with each other.
Thank you
so
so much.